Good evening. It is day 26 of the Occupy protests. People Power legislator Albert Chan has successfully helped an Occupy Central volunteer apply for legal aid to appeal against an injunction order that is against protesters gathered in Mongkok. Chan said the appeal is already underway and they are now waiting for the court hearing to begin. The applicant is a 38-year-old man surnamed Ng. He said he's been camping out in Mongkok for weeks and has been helping to set up barricades in the area. High Court Judge Jeremy Poon explained today his decision to grant the injunctions against protesters in Admiralty and Mongkok. He said the civil disobedience campaign could turn into civil disorder. Stephanie Choi reports.
In his written ruling, Judge Jeremy Poon said the barriers and obstructions set up by protesters in Mongkok caused serious traffic congestion. And the occupation of other major roads on Hong Kong Island deter potential customers, including tourists, from using taxis, resulting in substantial losses for taxi drivers and managers. Also, public light buses and their passengers should be entitled to free passage. The judge then pointed out that demonstrators are fully aware that their actions would cause nuisance and present a real risk of harm to the public. He added that the demonstration, which has lasted for a long time, has a real risk of turning into civil disorder. The judge stressed that neither the noble intentions of the participants nor the fact that the demonstration is civil disobedience is reason enough to stop the granting of an injunction. Judge Jeremy Poon also said that it is the foundation of the rule of law in Hong Kong that a court order is obeyed even if protesters disagree with the injunction. He said protesters may voice their grievances in court in a peaceful and legal manner. As for the injunction concerning access to CITIC Tower in Admiralty, the judge emphasized that the court is not engaged with any political discussion. He noted that the blockage to fire exits and the main vehicle access to the building causes tremendous hazards and risks to users of the building. That's why he granted the injunction. A representative of one of the taxi drivers groups that applied for the injunction against the protesters in Mongkok told us that if the court agrees to extend the injunction order, he may ask the court for help in clearing obstacles on the roads. This includes asking for assistance from the police or applying for a warrant to arrest protesters. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
More tensions flared up at the Mongkok occupation zone today. Once again, anti-occupiers attempted to remove the barriers set up by protesters on the roads. Again, they were confronted by protesters, and police had to move in to separate the two sides. Evelina Lung tells us more.
This has become a familiar scene at Mongkok. At around 2 this afternoon, anti-occupiers marched to Portland Street in Mongkok and started removing the barricades set up by the civil disobedience demonstrators. They used sharp tools to cut open the tape used to hold the barriers together. The anti-occupiers then moved the barriers, wooden objects and other obstacles away from the roads. Afterwards, the group moved to Argyle Street to continue their removal action. They said they are doing this out of their own will and that they are being forced to do so because the roads have already been blocked off for weeks now. They denied they are bailiffs. We are simply removing the things lying on the ground and putting them in the rubbish bins, this man said. The group then left shortly after. The police moved the debris from the dismantled barricades to the side of the road. However, the removal action didn't bode well with the Occupy movement supporters. They claimed that some people tried to provoke them during the incident. Secretary for Justice Rimsky-Yoon called on the Occupy protesters to leave the areas being occupied. He said the interim injunction is a serious order issued by the High Court, and if it isn't obeyed, this could pose a threat to Hong Kong's rule of law in the long run. This was echoed by the police.
It's obvious to everyone that the daily lives of the general public have been seriously affected by the illegal occupation of roads and the resultant traffic chaos. Noise nuisance has further brought sleepless nights to the neighborhood. This has caused grievances in the local community.
Hui also warned parents not to take their children to the high-risk protest sites such as Mongkok. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Civic Party member Ken Tsang, who was allegedly attacked by police officers following his arrest last week, has applied for a second judicial review. Now, he did so in a new attempt to reveal the identities of the 7 officers involved in the incident. Tsang is asking the court to declare that the police neglected his rights by mistreating him and that he was detained illegally last Wednesday. He also said the police never officially declared that he was under arrest, and therefore they don't have the right to ask him to continue bail. Last Thursday, Tsang applied for a judicial review to force the police to reveal the identities of the officers who allegedly attacked him. But his request was rejected because the court said he has to first ask the police himself before submitting the application.
Some people hung a huge banner from the top of the Lion Rock Mountain this morning. On the banner are the words, "I want true universal suffrage" in Chinese and "umbrella movement" in English. Around 11 a.m., police received a report that about 10 people were seen working on a banner at the Lion Rock summit. The callers said they could be in danger. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department is following up. Under the Country Parks Ordinance, no one should post banners, notices, posters, or any promotional items without permission from the Country and Marine Parks Authority. Offenders are liable to a $2,000 fine and 3 months in prison. The second deadly attack in 3 days against Canadian military personnel has raised fears that Islamic extremists are targeting Canada for its contribution in the fight against terrorism. James Aiken has more on a shooting rampage in the nation's capital that has shaken the normally tranquil country.
It was the middle of the morning when a stunning act of violence shattered a routine day on Parliament Hill. Witnesses say a masked gunman approached Canada's National War Memorial and shot to death a ceremonial honor guard. The gunman then turned towards the main parliamentary block nearby. Dramatic video captured what happened next.
I hear this pop, pop, pop. Possibly 10 shots, don't really know. Thought it was dynamite or construction rather than anything else.
I heard a bunch of pops. I thought it was just firecrackers going off. So I look across the street and there was a man with a rifle shooting at a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, that's pretty big, eh?
The attack ended when the gunman was shot dead by the ceremonial sergeant-at-arms. Canada's Prime Minister, who was in a nearby room during the shooting, was shuttled away during the chaos. He said the attack is a reminder that Canada is not immune to terrorist attacks at home.
But let there be no misunderstanding. We will not be intimidated. Canada will never be intimidated. In fact, this will lead us to strengthen our resolve and redouble our effort to identify and counter threats and keep Canada safe here at home.
The U.S. president called the event tragic and said it's important for both countries to stay in sync in dealing with terrorism.
It emphasizes the degree to which we have to remain vigilant when it comes to dealing with these kinds of acts of senseless violence or terrorism.
Little has been revealed about what motivated the gunman, identified as 32-year-old petty criminal Michael Zehaf-Bebo. Earlier this week, another Canadian soldier was killed when he was run over in a car park. The driver was shot dead by police. Like the suspect from the Ottawa shooting, he was a recent convert to Islam. It is unclear whether there is any connection between the two attacks, and no group has claimed responsibility. James Aiken, TVB News.
The man is in custody after he climbed over the White House fence and was apprehended on the North Lawn by Secret Service agents and their dogs. The Secret Service says 23-year-old Dominic Adesanya from the U.S. state of Maryland was not armed when he was arrested. U.S. President Barack Obama was at the White House at the time. The incident comes a month after another White House fence jumper carrying a knife sprinted across the same lawn, past armed agents, and entered the mansion before he was taken into custody. That embarrassment, along with disclosures of other serious breaches in security for the president, ultimately led to Julia Pearson's resignation as director of the Secret Service after 18 months on the job.
U.S. officials unveiled more measures to carry out Ebola monitoring on people arriving from 3 West African countries hardest hit by the virus. As of Monday, anyone coming in from Liberia, Sierra Leone, or Guinea will be monitored daily for 3 weeks. Alan Booknia reports.
On Tuesday, the U.S. government announced that all people arriving from those countries will have to go through one of 5 designated airports that will conduct advanced screening for the virus. Now, they'll also be required to coordinate with local public health officials for daily checkups for 21 days, the incubation period for Ebola. In Washington, after meeting with newly appointed Ebola czar Ron Klain, President Barack Obama expressed confidence in the measures. He noted that the World Health Organization has declared Nigeria and Senegal Ebola-free. The West African countries also had Ebola victims, but had no new cases for 42 days, twice the incubation period.
It gives you some sense that when it's caught early and where the public health infrastructure operates effectively, this outbreak can be stopped.
Obama also expressed optimism towards the ongoing recovery of 2 American nurses affected with Ebola while treating a patient. One of them, Amber Vinson, is no longer showing symptoms.
Our hearts and thoughts and prayers are still with the 2 nurses who were affected. Again, we're cautiously optimistic. They seem to be doing better.
Another American who contracted the virus while working in West Africa was released from hospital in Nebraska. Freelance cameraman Ashuka Mukpo was declared Ebola-free, and he boarded a plane headed for his home in Rhode Island. Meanwhile, in Liberia, the worst-hit country, 51 Cuban medical personnel arrived to aid in efforts to stop the spread of the virus.
We are ready 100%. Here, the most important thing is the fight against Ebola. Any other thing should be put aside, so we can work shoulder to shoulder with them anytime. No problem at all.
Cuba is sending the largest medical contingent of any country to West Africa. More than 250 have already been sent, and another 200 plus are trained and ready. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
A Palestinian motorist with a history of anti-Israeli violence slammed his car into a crowded train station in Jerusalem Wednesday, killing a 3-month-old baby girl. 8 people were wounded in what police call a terror attack. Authorities say the girl and her parents, who were among those injured, were U.S. citizens. Police say the driver got out of the car and tried to flee before he was shot by an officer. He's reported to be in serious condition. A police spokesman added the driver had served time in an Israeli prison for terrorism. Israeli media reported he was a member of the Islamic militant group Hamas.
And stay with us for more news after this commercial break.
A woman arrested for helping her dying father kill himself. A man turning his knack for finding mushrooms into a method for finding gold. Plus, architectural treasures falling into despair in Italy. Saturday night, 60 Minutes at 6:30 on Pearl.
L'Occitane 以蠟菊配合7元活基因子，破解衰老基因密碼，升華再生功效。L'Occitane Divine Cream 臨床實證能抗皺、重塑輪廓、修復歲月痕跡。全新 Divine 極致再生精華油隆重登場。
L'Occitane en Provence。
喺我有第2胎嘅時候，返到屋企以為自己冇事，當時我好擔心肚裏邊個 BB。我老公即刻打俾 Louis， 佢好清楚我個 plan， 佢叫我哋放心，醫生建議嘅治療都 cover 到㗎。我好珍惜今日有嘅一切。
英國寶城用心聆聽，更知你心。
Get ready for a new page